So in case you guys didn't hear, this meeting is being recorded. And Chris, I don't want to ignore you, and we're going to talk about double blind, but Tom and I were just talking before we started recording. He was telling me about his work on Planet Hulk. So if you could tell me a little bit more about, you were telling me you designed that entire arena for the
Yeah, I didn't. Well, I kind of did. So they sent me designs of here's what we wanted it to look like, but none of those matched. So I basically I had to build it kind of like a pieces of here, pieces of it there, and just kind of built the whole thing. And the thing is, we didn't know how much we were going to use, and so I just built everything. Like, all this, the stadium itself, the seats, the statues, the arena floor, the opening of, it opens up in the middle. And yeah, it was nuts. It took, weeks to do, like just down to the flags waving. And yeah, it was really, really fun. It was my first time really doing something on that scale before. And it was for, this animated movie with Marvel. So yeah, it was really neat.
Did you do any of the character design stuff, or were you mostly doing the background stuff, like the
So I did visual effects and what's called retake animation, which is, most of the animation is done overseas, and so then when it comes back, there's, if anything needs fixing or enhancing, so I did that kind of stuff.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna pull away from the Marvel thing so we can focus on double blind. I can't promise that I'm not going to swing back to some Marvel.
Hey, yeah, that's cool.
But let's focus on double blind. First of all, it's currently on Prime, Amazon Prime. Yes. For for those with a Prime membership. I think the rent it's like a couple of dollars. But I know that it is currently on Prime. Can you guys tell me when it originally released?
I think it released at the very, very end of June. It might have been June 30th, 29th or 30th. Yeah.
Gotcha. Because I was thinking it was July 30th, and then I got on Prime, and I was like, oh, it's on here. So that was pretty cool. So first question, Tom, with you are a very visual aesthetic guy with, animation, a lot of the stuff that you've done, even in, live action. I want to know what fueled your decision to go black and white for this?
Well, this was a thing that, when we were sitting around and talking about just, doing a project together, because Chris and I go way back, like we've been friends for a long time. And then my wife is the other producer, and then our friend, Jen, my thing was I wanted to do so. I was very inspired by a couple of indie films that had come out over the past few years. One of them was called Monster, which was Gareth Edwards' independent film that he did. And then another was called For Lovers Only, which was done by the Polish brothers. And both of those films were essentially one-man crew. And For Lovers Only was shot with a Canon 5D in sort of a French New Wave style. They shot in Paris. And I wanted to do, I love that aesthetic. I love the one-man crew thing, but let's do it with like a genre movie, so like action adventure, and so we kind of picked spy movies. We all like spy movies. And so that was kind of it. Like, it was designed to be black and white from the very beginning. Designed to be, just a simple crew with a handheld, very simple aesthetic. And that's kind of where that started.
Was this your first black and white film that you've done like this? And I guess this goes for both of you. Tom, is this your first black and white film that you have done to bring this aesthetic?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was my first.
So, Chris, you same for you?
It was my first black and white too. I had to recalibrate my acting to go black and white. So, yeah.
So was there any difference, like generally, were there any differences in your performing, the way that you approached the script, Chris, as far as knowing that it was going to be in that aesthetic?
No, the lack of color. Actually, I've been told I do look better in black and white, so I prefer it. I would prefer all my movies to be in black and white now. It takes away all of the imperfections that color reveals. But as far as the performance goes, no. I mean, acting is acting. But there were some instances on set where we knew we could get away with things because the color's not going to give us away. So, blood might not be red, and different things can happen much more simply, I think, in most cases. Tom, did you ever find that it actually caused problems, or did it just solve problems being in black and white?
No, never. It really only helped. And it was sort of an inadvertent thing because, normally in cinematography, one thing you worry about is blending light temperatures. So you have indoor lighting, which tends to be warmer, and outdoor lighting, which tends to be cooler. And you kind of want to avoid mixing those two. And so for us, it just didn't matter.
So I think, was this initially done prior to the pandemic when you guys had filmed it? I know you
Yes.
mentioned that it was an indie and you had a kind of more of a skeleton crew, but it was still done before before the pandemic went into effect, before there were any lockdown restrictions.
Yeah.
Yes. We wrapped a couple of years ago, actually, and then went through post. And because it was indie, just you work on it when you can. And we put it out there through, some people that Chris knows. And that's how it ended up on Amazon Prime. But, none of that stuff really happens overnight. So these things kind of gestate for a while.
But Joe, it is a good point, because a movie like that would be something that, we bent the rules anyway, getting it made back then. It would be something we could probably get away with during a pandemic too, because it's a really, the crew was Tom. Tom was the whole crew. And then it was just whoever was in front of the camera. And, when you yell cut, when he yells cut, then we all do other things to make the next shot possible.
Do you think that has kind of let you learn a little bit more about the stuff behind the camera, Chris? Or do you think that it's something that you've had your hands in with a number of projects over the years?
Every single time I get to be on set, I learn something. And yeah, I learned all about French New Wave from Tom. I'd never even seen a French New Wave movie before. And so he introduced me to For Lovers Only. And I was excited that he wanted to do this mashup. It's typically a quiet romance that's shot in that style, and he wanted to bring in the genre, bring in an action piece, which, as far as we know, I don't know if it's ever been done before in that style. So it was really fun to. Yes, I learned a lot. I learned a lot, particularly from Tom, in this whole process.
So
Chris is being modest. He directed a movie. We met on the movie that he directed.
What was that?
It was a movie called Radio America. I didn't know what I was doing. And we shot it back in 2010. And Tom came on. At this point, man, it's kind of cool to look backwards and see all the miracles that have happened to, come together. And Tom was one of those miracles that made Radio America possible, because Radio America was on a shoestring, but not quite as frayed a shoestring as Double Blind was on. And so we brought Tom on to make some plot points plausible. Like it was a story about rockers, and so they were supposed to be in a big arena, and Tom took just a couple of elements and pieced them together to create this several very convincing arena shots where this rock band is supposed to be touring around the country and possible. And I fell in love with his work because he's fast, he's precise, and he would always bring me shots that were 10 times better than what I thought I'd asked for. And so I was blown away by that. And we became pretty close from that. And we ended up sharing an office and becoming tight pals from that. So that was, the movie was almost secondary to what's become since then.
Well, so you mentioned, Chris has mentioned now that you worked on that arena for that film. Tom, you started talking about, putting the arena together for Planet Hulk. Do you feel like those experiences, even though one's in animation, one's in live action, do you feel like those kind of lend to each other, or is it a completely different beast?
Well, I would say animation's a little more forgiving than live action, but they're the same. I kind of approach everything as just the shot, so it's like whatever it takes to kind of make the shot better or what it needs to be. Like I just look at it all the same. So I really float back and forth between the two, really.
So then, to switch back to Chris, you have been in a lot of action movies over the years. So I imagine that you do some of your own stunts. I don't want to just assume that, but I imagine that you do some of your own stunts, right?
I did for Double Blind. I even did other people's stunts because I played about 4 characters, I think, in the movie. Only one with my face showing, though. Yeah, and it was great the way that Tom shot it and the way that we kind of approached it. It looked like something dangerous was going to happen, and then your brain just sort of connects the dots. But very rarely, well, there was one point that's not on camera that was very dangerous in the movie, but most everything else was just very cleverly put together. So you think something's happening, very cleverly edited. So your brain just connects the dots. You're like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And meanwhile, on set, we just, Tom yells cut and we stop and nobody gets hurt.
Well, did you do any, there were guns in this, and I want to know if you had, did you guys, this question kind of goes for both of you. I'm trying to find the right word for it. Did you guys need to learn things about like weapon props, or like Chris, have you done that in previous films so you could bring that knowledge here? Or is this something you guys looked into together?
Well, we definitely talked about it together. Before I did Double Blind, I had the opportunity to train with this company called Gunmetal Training. I don't know if they're still around, but they're there to train actors to look like they know what they're doing when they're holding a firearm and how to hold it. And so that certainly went a long way. But then we had to work with what we had. So I showed up and was like, well, I've got this gun, and Tom's like, well, I have this one, and sometimes you when you're watching the movie, the shot will cut, and so like the good guy is holding the gun, and then we cut to the bad guy, and you don't realize he's holding the same gun because that's the only gun we have for the moment. So yeah, it was really more that. There's a couple of genius shots where you'd swear that everybody's holding a gun, and and we're actually working with 1.5, 2.5 guns at most.
Oh yeah. Oh, I remember there was a scene where we didn't have enough guns, and I had to have 3 henchmen in the shot. And so I just told the guy, I was like, just act like you're holding a gun and no one will notice. And no one has noticed so far that he's not he's holding air.
Yeah.
I'm going to look for it now.
Just so this is me even, and I know where it is.
Just so I can post it online and make a big deal about it.
blowing the story wide open.
That's right. Well, all press is good press. We'll take it.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, did you? So the movie magic that goes into like the different shots, making it look like there's more than one gun, the things you're talking about, is there something specific project that you worked in the past, Tom, that helped inform that style of directing?
It was really, it was funny is because I've done visual effects for 15 years in animation and stuff. And when we were talking about this movie, I was like, I want no visual effects, if at all possible, in this thing, because I want to finish it in my lifetime. And and because I had done some films before that were very visual effects heavy, and you just work on them forever, especially on the budget that we had and the resources that we had. So I really intentionally designed everything to be as in camera, as much as humanly possible. So I think we have a couple of muzzle flashes. The biggest visual effects work in the film is replacing the license plate of the hero car. Like,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, there were probably 30 of those shots.
Oh no!
And that's it. So we really, even the bullet wounds, on the guy, that was all practical. The guns were there. They were physical. Everything. There was no green screen at all, so it was all in camera as much as possible.
Blood, Tom? Were there any blood effect shots?
There was one shot when our villain when you shoot our villain actually at the door, a blood splatter goes on the wall. That's a visual effect. That's digital.
Okay.
But yeah.
So I know there's a smaller crew on this. Then did you do the stunt like directing yourself, or is that something that you look to Chris's expertise for?
Oh no, I rely on Chris, and we had a friend of Chris's named Jader helped coordinate some of the stunts. You know, when there were fight scenes, it was pretty much those guys. And you know, and I was like, here's kind of what needs to happen, and just show me what you're gonna do, and then I'll film it. So it was great. Yeah, it was a very, it was a collaborative effort. We got lucky in a lot of ways. We had a cast of probably about 30 people. And we didn't audition anybody. Like these are all friends of ours. Everyone that helped out, they were all people that we knew who just, wanted to be part of something. And so it was, great for us.
Is this the first conspiracy like spy flick that each of you have done? Have either of you ever done anything that kind of parallels this?
I don't think I have. No.
No, definitely for me, my first one.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, then I think it's really cool that it like the release pretty much coincided with Black Widow's release, because that's a huge spy conspiracy thing.
Yeah.
People looking to get that itch can now find. I mean, on Amazon Prime, you can stream it on Amazon Prime. So
right.
That's really handy.
Yeah, I think Marvel looked at the release date and decided they wanted to ride our coattails.
Yeah.
I was thinking that. Yeah, I was going to say, like, Scarlett Johansson was like, let's follow Chris on this one.
Yeah.
But genuinely, Chris, I know that you have done a couple superhero projects, but have you done any animation or voice acting?
I have. I've done a little bit, not a ton. It's so much fun too, doing voice acting. I always consider that the cream of the crop of acting gigs, because there's no hair or makeup. You can show up with 3 days of stubble and nobody cares, and it's really specific acting, because anything that happens on screen has to happen in your throat. It only happens in sound. You can't augment it with your hands. Now, when I'm in the sound booth, I'm flailing around just so I get in character. But you have to remember, like, the only camera is the microphone in that case.
With all your animated experience, Tom, did you ever lend a voice, or did you always stay behind the scenes?
Oh yeah, no, I'm behind the scenes.
Really, no scratch voices?
No, I did. Yeah, I did. Actually, you and I recorded some stuff for. You remember that?
Yeah,
so
Ninja Ned, I think.
Yeah, my brother's an animation director, and so we were helping him out with the project, and it was such a blast that it made me very envious of voice actors. It was a lot of fun.
It was. Yeah, we laughed so hard that night. That was hilarious.
So to continue on like the animation / like superhero train, Chris, I know that you were in you had multiple episodes that you were in Supergirl. You also even a smaller part in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I was wondering if you had stunts on those things as well, and whether or not, this is kind of a two-part question, whether or not you were familiar at all with the source material, or if you kind of had to study before you did those roles.
In both cases, A, no stunts, just simple stuff. And B, yes, I had to study the source material because I wasn't boned up on him. And that's kind of daunting too, because I know that the fan base for both those projects is avid. So it's a lot of responsibility to come from zero to try and represent something that they know so much better than I do.
Is there a bigger project that you want to get involved with like that you wouldn't have to do as much research on because you're a fan of?
Well, back in the day when I was a young buck, I pushed pretty hard on the Superman franchise. I wrote to directors. I got in front of a couple of casting directors. Just never closed the deal. But yeah, that's a property that I was pretty passionate about, because I was passionate about the character and about the lore. So
well, that's pretty cool because you guys came around to Supergirl, and now they have Superman and Lois. So you know, if they don't bring you as the same character, hopefully you can make an appearance at least and be a part of that.
right, and if it doesn't work out with that one, then maybe if they come back around with Superman and Ursula.
So Tom, you let's talk about, you know, research and stuff on this. I imagine that you are probably a lot more versed in the comic world because I know that you've done at least half a dozen, if not more, animated comic book projects. You know, you have Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Wolverine and the X-Men, Hulk versus Planet Hulk. Big Mouth isn't a Marvel project, but you know, you do a lot of animated stuff. Did you have to do a lot of deep dives into the comics when building those things like the arena, or did you grow up on that stuff?
I kind of grew up. I grew up with comic strips, comic books, like anything that was drawn, like, you know, animated films, pretty much everything under the sun that I could get my hands on. You know, I remember when Todd McFarlane first came on the scene, like that's how old I am. And, you know, it just changed everything. And so I feel like I was there, like, you know, at that nexus moment when comic books like just changed overnight. So I've kind of always been around it, like, you know, mostly for the artwork more so than the stories, to be honest. But yeah, so I knew who all these characters were. And I remember when we were working on those, this was before the Iron Man movie came out. And we were working with Marvel when that was in development. And so I remember kind of the buzz around, you know, these guys were, you know, talking about like, you know, our first in-house Marvel film. And I was like, oh, you know, I hope it does well.
Well,
Okay.
do you think that your visual effects work could translate onto a big screen movie? Like, I know you do a lot with Hulk, like Agents of S.M.A.S.H, Planet Hulk, Hulk versus. Do you think you could handle like arenas for like live action in a Hulk movie, kind of similar to what they did with Thor Ragnarok?
I don't know. You know, like I said, you know, animation's a little more forgiving, and you know, that kind of thing when and I've done like, you know, plenty of visual effects for a live action film, but that you're getting into a different level, you know, there essentially you're talking about like industrial like magic kind of stuff. That's not really what I do, and it's, man, hats off to those crews. Holy cow. You know, especially these days, because now, you know, the turnaround on visual effects is so insane. It's, you know, it's just what a crazy gig. And every movie has it. Like every film today has visual effects in it. And it doesn't matter. Like you watch Downton Abbey has visual effects. You know, it's like it's everywhere.
What kind of visual effects are in Double Blind?
Well, we did muzzle flashes and we did the license plate replacements that I mentioned before. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Like we didn't have any green screen. We didn't have any super complicated anything. There was one, I left a camera lens on a table. I had to cover that up throughout a whole scene, and that really upset me. It was a Game of Thrones coffee cup in the middle of a scene.
Although I saw the clip, and it kind of looked like just another plate on the table.
It did.
It could have been overlooked, but Tom has a very keen eye, so
I love
it would have bothered him till the end of time if we left it in.
I love the attention to detail. Now, you guys said that, you know, this was a much smaller scope as far as budget-wise, crew-wise. Did you guys have to do a lot? Is there like a specific scene that you felt like you had to do a lot of takes on to get it right? Something that took longer than maybe the rest of the project that you kind of build everything else around?
No, I don't think so. You know, one of the things that we were dealing with, you know, whenever you have the constraints that we had, you know, it was essentially no budget. We had a lot of locations, probably more than we reasonably should have in a film of this scope. And so, you know, it was really the opposite in most cases, where we were in, like, we got one location where we had 2 hours to film a whole sequence there. And we had, I don't know how many, it started out as maybe 9 or 10 pages of script that we had to, the night before, we're like furiously trying to cut down as much as possible. And so because we had those limitations in almost every location, it was, you know, we really just had to be on the ball, like every day that we showed up, you know. And these guys were all super pros, like the actors, everyone crazy professional, and just everybody knew their parts, knew their lines, you know. And we could play around a little bit, but there wasn't a lot of latitude to get Stanley Kubrick on this thing.
Right. You know, the scene that Tom's talking about, where we had 2 hours to shoot it, we were shooting in the location that was kind of a favor of a friend who was not entirely in charge as well. So going in, we didn't quite know how long we had, and somebody else was doing some set dressing. It was beautiful, but it took like the whole time to do set dressing, and we finally got it done. We were all ready to shoot, and then the powers that be come in and said, "Okay, guys, that's it. Let's wrap it up."
Yeah.
And we hadn't shot a single thing yet. So our friend went out and just started talking, you know, to the powers that be, just to do a little negotiating. While that's happening, we're furiously shooting everything that we can, and we amazingly, it's a miracle, we got everything shot in the time that he was trying to talk down, you know, the folks that were in charge of the location. It was one of the most stressful nights of shooting, but it went surprisingly smooth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was every day.
And that was every day. Every day was more stressful than the last.
Well, stress-wise, Chris, you said there was a scene that was dangerous or that got taken out. Can you guys talk about that at all, or is that something you guys try to?
I guess now with the distance of those moments behind us, we had guns in the movie, and we knew what the laws were, especially around LA, and you're not supposed to have a weapon outdoors at all. Like if you're filming, you need a permit, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And
there were no permits on Double Blind.
Yeah, we had no permits on it. So we had a scene that took place in what we thought was kind of a remote, out of the way place, but it was a public park. And somebody saw us and thought that everything was real that we were doing. And so all of a sudden, police show up, and Chris got handcuffed. It was really, really nuts. And I kind of took it in stride as like, okay, we know, you know, we kind of know what our rights are in terms of filming, but you know, they're going to tell us they can't shut us down. All they can do is tell us to put the guns away, and we can shoot the rest of, you know, we can do the rest of our day. And so after they left, we took the guns back out and finished our scene.
The rest of our day.
Yeah, so they didn't shut us down, and I knew that they wouldn't, because they couldn't. But yeah, so that was just their only thing, was like, well, you can't have the guns out. And so
did they leave Chris in handcuffs when they took off?
Oh, what a great souvenir that would be. But it would have been epic.
Yeah, well, you'd have to go back in and edit them out. You could have to edit out the handcuffs.
Oh yeah, oh man, you know, it's funny is when you get into that mindset, you just want to film it all. Like, oh, when are we? You know, we can't pay for stuff like this. Like, film all the cop cars. But yeah, it wasn't part of the story, unfortunately. But
what was interesting is when the police did show up, every single one of us was holding a gun at the time. The only one holding a gun that wasn't holding a gun was Tom, and Tom was holding a camera with a pistol holster, so it looked like a gun on it. And we could all put our guns away, but Tom had to go, you know, with the pistol holder camera. So when we came out, you know, I had my hands up. Because there were 5 squad cars. All the cops were in battle position, you know, with the doors open. They're hunkering down behind the doors because they'd heard there's guys out here with weapons, and we're all coming out with hands up and said, "I'm not touching the gun, but it's right there. Help yourself." And Tom comes out. He's the only one that's actually looks like he's holding a gun. He's the only one that didn't have a real gun. But they were actually quite nice. They were very forgiving and
they were very
complimented
cool.
us on how realistic our weapons looked. So that was kind of a nice bonus.
Did you guys do? I thought I read that you guys did filming in Arizona. Some filming in Arizona. Is that correct? Or?
No, we shot.
I wasn't on that.
Yeah, no, we shot all around. We shot Apple Valley. We went as far as Apple Valley.
Yeah, and we were in Wrightwood. We did a lot of shooting up in the Wrightwood Mountains, and that was another. In a weekend, we got an incredible amount of the movie shot in 2.5 days. So that was pretty exciting.
Well, it sounds like you guys both had an amazing time on the film. Is there anything you guys want to mention about Double Blind that I didn't touch on? People don't really ask you that you guys think is a fun tidbit to share.
I don't know. I kind of think we like I said, it was really the whole thing started out as just the 4 of us. It was me, Chris, my wife, and Jen just going, let's just do a thing. Like, we have this much money, which wasn't very much. Nothing that we would have missed. And let's just make a project. And, now here we are, a couple of years later, it's on Amazon Prime. And the whole thing was, well, at the end of the day, we'll have a movie. We had a super fun time making it. I hope it's fun to watch. But, at the end of the day, we just have a project that we're proud of, and anything that happens beyond that is just kind of gravy. So, I'm glad it's up there for people to see, what we did. But it was all, the composer and sound designer was a friend of mine. Like, the editing was done by a friend of mine who was, wanting to do his first feature. Like I said, we just got lucky, we in so many ways of just having all these great people in our lives already, so that we didn't have to look for anything.
Yeah, I'd agree 100% with Tom on that. And also I'd add, going into this, I knew it was going to be fun because I knew the people that I was working with were really fun, wonderful, and very talented people. So I knew that it was going to be a learning experience. It was going to be, a chance to hang out together with people that you love. But I had no expectation that it would turn out the way that it did. It was 1,000% beyond my hopes of how great this movie would be. And we held to raise a little bit of money, and we did this movie. It's a sub $10,000 movie. It's probably the cheapest movie that you'll ever see, and you'll never know that it was that cheap. And some of the money that we raised during a gala. We put together a gala, and it was just fun to see how many people were willing to come out and support what was basically kind of a joyride for us to start. And then it snowballed into something that was bigger and bigger and bigger. And getting to be a part of something that takes on a life of its own. When you had low expectations, it's pretty exciting. And then it's exciting to share now with everyone out there on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, that's a really cool journey, going from gala to those people being able to just stream it with a Prime membership. Before I wrap, I want to make sure you guys have a chance to plug anything, any other projects that you need to plug, any websites, any social media, anything else that you guys want to take. I always like to give you guys, the guests, a short platform at the end to make sure that you guys have a chance to say anything you need to.
I'm just going to plug Chris Showerman. Just watch the movie on Amazon Prime. I'm currently working on Duncanville on Fox, and so if you want to tune into that, please do.
That's amazing. All right, before I get to
Oh, I thought that was your dog, Chris.
It's my
Okay.
My fiance is home. I'd like to plug my dog. He is he is a Barker. He is a long-haired Chihuahua. If you can't tell by the thing. But I was gonna say, sorry, you had mentioned Duncanville, yes. So that's amazing because I had spoken when season 1 originally came out. I had spoken with I can't think of the names. The guys, they worked on The Simpsons and the creators of Duncanville.
The Scullys.
Yes. Is it Mike? And I think Mike is the one.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't. You know what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
them and one of the actors as well. So that's really cool to know that it's coming back for a season 2 now. Did you do anything on season 1 as far as animation wise?
No, I was working on Big Mouth at the time, and then a friend of mine who's a director on season 2 invited me to come over and work on the show. So, but season 2 is airing now on Fox, and then we're starting on season 3. So we got that that was green lighted. So.
That's awesome. I didn't even realize we were on season 2 yet. And
I'm
gonna come to you, Chris, but real quick, Tom, as far as animation wise, what is between Big Mouth and Duncanville versus like all the Marvel stuff you did? What's the biggest difference for you between doing those shows?
I guess the Marvel films, just how they were done was a little different. The shows were very similar, because they're all kind of done in studio. They were done with, I believe Film Roman did the animation. But the Marvel films were a partnership with Lionsgate. And so that was sort of this family of crew that did about 4 or 5 movies. And then that was it. And we kind of all wanted more. I think Planet Hulk was the last or next to the last one.
I think you did the Hulk versus Thor and Hulk versus Wolverine.
Yeah.
And then Thor, Tales of Asgard or something like that.
Yes, yeah.
And then
Thor,
Planet Hulk.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is how similar those stories all are.
Yeah.
We even did the Next Avengers with Ultron too. So we had Ultron, and it was the children of the Avengers having to face Ultron. And so that was really cool. I got to do some really, really neat stuff with that. And that's such a good movie. And it's like the animation world, and Chris will tell you this, is such a small community. Like I'm still friends with all of these people. And the same with Big Mouth and Duncanville. Like, it's great. These are the Duncanville, Big Mouth are sitcoms, so it is a little different. And then on the Marvel films, I mostly did visual effects and retake animation, and now I'm doing storyboards. So my experience on these is different. So I'm
kind of a random question in that wheelhouse, and I'm making Chris sit in a corner and wait on me.
No, I'm fine. I'm listening like everyone else. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, Tom seems interesting enough to keep us both captivated for a while.
That's right.
But Tom, I kind of more of a deep cut. I'm such a huge fan of the Yoast animation, and like I said, I know you worked on the Wolverine and the X-Men, and you did the Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes. But what was really cool for me is there was one of the shows had a crossover with the Hulk versus. It was like the Hulk versus Wolverine, Wolverine versus Hulk. I think in the Wolverine and the X-Men, like they did the back like opposite. There was a couple scenes. So I was wondering if you had to refresh any of that, or if that was something that maybe you weren't involved in on that piece.
No, yeah, I wasn't involved so much with that stuff. That was a lot of Chris. What's really great about that, now that you bring that up, is that Chris actually introduced me to Hemsworth and Hiddleston.
Really?
Yeah. So this was, again, before anyone knew anything about what this stuff was going to be. He had moved over to live action. So, we were sort of moving on to different projects, and he was moving on to different projects. And I ran into him at Comic-Con, and he was like, "Hey, come on." And yeah.
Here's Hemsworth and Hiddleston.
Yeah, we're like, and
these are
of
going to be the
course,
guys
like, I don't know.
you've been drawing.
Yeah, I don't know who these guys are. Like Thor had not come out yet.
Yeah,
And
I think that
yeah,
was until 2011, and you did a lot of that animation around 2010 or earlier, I think.
yeah, it was around there. It was around 09, 10, yeah. And then Thor was it was technically the third MCU film, but it was the second one that I remember because everybody forgets the Incredible Hulk. But
you had Iron Man 2 also.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Thor. So that was technically the fourth.
But I remember us talking about Thor at the time, and just I guess I won't name names, but a funny little anecdote. One of the supervising directors I worked with thought that MCU had stolen every storyline that we were working on to make the live action movies. It was so great because we did do a Doctor Strange film. I didn't work on that one, but they did do a Doctor Strange film, and yeah, so a lot of things that we were seeing were coming to fruition in the live action division. So yeah,
I'm with you there 100%. When I put on Earth's Mightiest Heroes, when I put on stuff like that in those animated series, especially even with like Planet Hulk, I'm like, these are a blueprint. They give you like they show you the direction that the MCU is headed. And like now that all this stuff with Loki's happening, I'm going back and watching these Kang things. I'm like, this is what they're gonna do because this is the blueprint. Yeah. Marvel's like, it's not broke. We're not gonna fix it.
I did think though when Ragnarok came out and there's the elements of Planet Hulk there, I was like, this is all very familiar.
It was so funny though because the Korg and Meek and Ragnarok are so vastly different from the Planet Hulk versions.
Yeah, they are.
But I think it worked out really great for the live action thing. And it's really cool because your guys' version, I think it was Beta Ray Bill instead of Thor. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in like just boom, boom, Beta Ray Bill just getting destroyed and then Hulk's coming down on Thor.
Yeah.
Literally shot for shot from that movie.
Oh yeah.
It was amazing. But I could talk all day about that. So Chris, Chris, go ahead and as I asked you 10 minutes ago, plug anything you need to plug.
Well, first off, Joe, I love your depth of knowledge and passion about this stuff. It's so cool.
Oh man,
you delve into it deep, and hang with Tom on it. I did want to plug on Double Blind. Tom mentioned that it was, the four producers were himself, me, his wife, Catherine, and Jennifer Jen. But also one of the other stars of the movie was Tom's daughter, which it's so weird now to see because that's how I knew Madeline was from when we shot this, a couple of years back. And she's now, what is she, Tom, in high school? Is she?
Yeah, 15.
15 years old and in high school. So it's kind of fun to have that now as a time capsule of her because we all, we age a little slower as we get older, but she's just getting so much from when we shot this movie.
That's really cool.
Such an adult now.
That's really cool. So she was probably a little over 10 when you guys originally shot it.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So you trust Chris with your kids then, I guess.
I do.
I almost broke Madeline a couple times throwing her in a car. So I'm surprised he kept letting me be around his daughter after that. It was an incredible time. So please, everybody watch Double Blind. Other things that I've been working on. I've got this. So during the pandemic, when all the gyms were closed and exercise equipment skyrocketed in price, I started doing my own fitness routines with just using dog leashes. So this is kind of aside from entertainment. It is entertaining, but I decided to do this fitness series with all the exercises that you could do with a dog leash. So I've been working on this series called The Path of Leashed Resistance.
Believe it or not, I researched this like when I still lived in Ohio. I was looking up this stuff. This is like 3 or 4 months ago.
No kidding.
Yeah, I was something from October Coast or Gravitas. I don't remember what it was, but they had sent me something about you, and I was like, "Path the Leash Resistance. This seems pretty cool." And I was like, "This is perfect for COVID. Like, do stuff with a dog leash, and who doesn't love dogs? Like, you heard mine." So, can you tell me more about that? I remember looking a bit into it, but now with everything I've done in the last 3 months and moving, I only remember little bits of it. Can you go a little bit more into depth on that path of least resistance?
Sure. So the path of least resistance is a exercise system where you can do everything with a pair of dog leashes. And if you have a dollar store around, you can get into the whole system for $2 because the videos are free on YouTube. But there's 60-second each episode, which drops every Friday, is 60 seconds long, and it's hopefully comic or at least groan-worthy dad comedy that I get such a kick out of. But also, each episode highlights one exercise or one stretch or one new way that you can rethink about using this pair of leashes that you may have bought to assimilate that into your workout routine.
That's is there anything else that you had wanted to mention, Chris? I was going to stop it there, but then I was like, I don't know if he was finished with the social media. Is there any social media you wanted to mention for your fans, Chris? I know you're all over the place, so I don't want to.
Sure. I'm happy to mention social media. Yeah, you can find me if you're interested. Follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, and you can also follow Path of Least Resistance on Instagram if you want. And also, too, something exciting that's in the distance is another film coming out called
George of the Jungle 3.
Oh, that would be epic. George of the Jungle 3. Yeah, George.
Sorry, go on.
George goes to the old folks' treehouse. Yeah.
You're saying you have another movie coming up.
Yeah, no, it's a movie called The Method. We don't have a release date, but it's sort of a Jekyll and Hyde story that's cleverly put in modern day. So
that's hella interesting.
Awesome.
And Tom loves Jekyll and Hyde. He's all over the hall.
Oh, speaking of Jekyll and Hyde, I just want to point out that Chris and I are about like 2 weeks apart in age, I think. Like almost is that right, Chris?
Oh, is that right? Yeah. What? You're July. By the way, happy birthday. When's your birthday?
No, it's February, but 72, right?
Yeah. So no, I'm older then because I just turned 50 because June of 71.
So he's older than me, but if you look at us side by side, I'm a before picture and he's an after picture.
Hardly.
So his stuff works.
Well, my birthday is a week from today, so I will take that happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday!
Happy birthday! Are you a Cancer?
I'm not. I'm at the
Leo.
end of. I'm just at the end. I'm 29th, so it's like the cutoff. I'm a Leo. That's why I talk so much. I need
It's a perfect job for you, Joe.
Right. But thank you guys so much for talking with me.